Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams back here on Beltway Boxing News and Notes. And we took a little bit of an absence, had a lot of things going on. I'll talk more about that in a little bit later on in this podcast. But we're back, and hopefully we're back on a regular basis because finally we do have a lot going on. We haven't had a lot going on over the last few weeks, but now I think we're back on schedule, getting ready to end this month, end this year, I should say, with a really nice wrap up with some good things going on, and we're glad to be a part of that. And of course, the Beltway Boxing News and Notes is brought to you by Real-Time Pain Relief. From boxers to ballerinas, from every pain in between, Real-Time Pain Relief is the plant-based ointment that really helps soothe your pain. And you can go to www.freepainoffer.com and you can get with your first $10 purchase of Real-Time Pain Relief, you get a free $10 tube of Real-Time Pain Relief. Real-Time Pain Relief, rub it on, and the pain is gone in real time. Well, as you said, the last few weeks have not had a lot of things going on. We've also personally had some things, nothing terrible, but just a lot of busy situations going on in my life, and keeping up with my job, my real-time job, so to speak, and as a teacher, and doing some other things. So just haven't had a lot of time to really do a lot of podcasts as of late. And plus, we haven't had a whole lot to talk about. Really, the last thing we really had to talk about was Dusty Harrison winning his bout last month, and doing a good job in that particular bout. But now we have some more to work with, and we've got a lot of things going on. And actually, we look past this past Friday, October 14th, at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, another strong performance for Waldorf, Maryland's Mike Yes Indeed Reed. He was one of the key bouts of the card in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania this past Friday night, and he scored a 6th-round TKO in his bout against Jose Herrera, I should say, out of Mexico. Hit him with a body shot, knocked him down. And I've been talking to and hearing from people who were at the contest. My good buddy out of Philadelphia, I think 3 or 4 time Philadelphia Boxing Writer of the Year, George Hansen Jr., said on his Facebook page that the crowd came up in droves from DC, and they got Mike Reed coming from Baltimore. I don't know where that comes from, but he's from Waldorf, Maryland. And they said the fans were there in droves for Mike Reed in the final bout, and he did not disappoint. 6th-round knockout, as it was a scheduled 8-round bout, and Herrera's corner just said, we're not sending him out here on this one. And according to George Hansen, I'm taking it from George, and George is a very reliable source. I trust him on this. He said that Harold Letterman was in attendance, and he said apparently Hansen overheard Letterman tell Mike Reed, "You should be fighting on HBO." Now, he's a top-ranked fighter, so hopefully that might be the case. I don't know. The politics world of boxing, like the politics we're dealing with now in our election cycle, is crazy. And we don't know whether or not the politics will mean that Mike Reed will again one day fight on HBO. Of course, Terrence Crawford fights on HBO. He's also a top-ranked fighter. So hopefully that will happen, because Lord knows he deserves it. And Mike Reed, outstanding fighter. He's now 20-0, 12 KOs. And we've said it since the very beginning. We named him Rookie of the Year. We named him Prospect of the Year. And now the country and soon the world will start to see, and the country is already starting to see, how good a boxer Mike Reed is. And that's going to be incredible once he does start fighting on places like HBO and bigger TV venue and TV venues in general. He's never really been on television before. He's been on the internet a few times, but he's never been on national television. So hopefully 2017 will be a big breakout year for Mike Yes Indeed Reed. So once again, 6th-round TKO over Jose Herrera. That was on October 14th at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, we do have another boxer scheduled to make a travel date, and that is Demetrius Ballard, Big Meech Ballard, out of Temple Hills, Maryland. He'll be in Montreal, Canada, Quebec, Canada, on Saturday, October 22nd at the Bell Center, and he's scheduled to take on Gergo Horvath. He is out of Budapest, Hungary. And he just bowed 14-0, 10 wins by knockout. Horvat is 9-1-1, 5 KO. I don't think he's fought the type of talent and type of opposition that Ballard has fought. It's a scheduled 8-round bout there. I believe it's on the undercard of the David Lemieux bout in Montreal, Canada. So that'll be on Saturday, October 22nd. We'll give you more details on the blog in the not-too-distant future. Closer to home on Saturday, October 22nd, Left Hook Promotions is having a card in Winchester, Virginia, and that's Left Hook Promotions run by Scott Farmer, and he'll have his son Andrew Farmer in the main event. Not a whole lot of Beltway boxers on this card other than Andrew, from what I can gather. A couple of them will not be able to fight. I think Cole Crumpler is off the card now. He just got injured, so we do know that Andrew Farmer will be on this card on Saturday, October 22nd in Winchester, Virginia. Now, on Wednesday night, October 19th, at the Grady Cole Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is an interesting bout. And it's interesting, probably only interesting to guys like me because I've been doing this for so long. But Larry Hitman Pryor will be in action at the Grady Cole Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, on Wednesday, October 19th. Pryor, 9-14, 5 KOs, has not fought since that loss to Travis Reeves on May 14th at the Timonium State Fairgrounds in Timonium, Maryland. Maryland State Fairgrounds in Timonium, Maryland. You heard that bout here on the Boxing on Beltway Google app for Android. And he's fighting a guy that, and I saw the name, I couldn't believe it was the same guy. Pryor's fighting a guy that for me goes back to my days on Boxing Spotlight. That's how far Barry Killer B Butler goes. Butler made his pro debut back in 1992. And he fought a number of Beltway boxers, fought a number of times in the Beltway region over the years. He fought the likes of Courtney Pound for Pound Butler, no relation. Fought him 3 times, lost to him all 3 times. He fought Roland Shonuff Pelt, who's a boxer actually out of Southern Virginia. He fought Jake Smith, believe it or not, back in 1996. He fought Jake Smith. He fought the late B. Haven Scotland. He won a big split decision win back in, I believe it was 1999, against Corey Cummings out of Baltimore. And he also fought on a card that I'm actually going to do a blog post about. I may even do a podcast about it as well. But we're coming up on an anniversary of a pretty big card that took place in the Beltway region. On Wednesday, October 19th, it'll be 20 years ago to the day that a card took place at the Showplace Arena up in Marlboro, Maryland, that featured both our middleweight champions at the time, WBA middleweight champion William Joppy and WBC middleweight champion Keith Holmes, defending their titles of the card that was shown on Showtime. And Holmes fought Richie Woodhall and knocked him out. William Joppy fought Ray McElroy on that card. Barry Butler fought a guy named Richard Frazier, who was a light heavyweight. I believe he was out of New York. I have to double check that. But we got to talk about that card. It'll be 20 years ago to the day of that card. And it was a pretty significant card, but it could have been more significant if the card had done what it was intended to do. And what it was intended to do was to eventually match Holmes and Joppy in a unification bout. That was the whole entire intent of that card. I have some thoughts about that card. And it'll be Wednesday, October 19th. That was 20 years ago to the day of this card. We'll talk more about that and have a little blog post about that card coming up. But that's how far Barry Butler goes. Barry Butler's record is 25-13-1 with 20 KOs. But he's only fought 1 time since 2008. So he's now 45 years old, back in the business, and apparently he won his last bout coming back. So this will be interesting. So he'll take on Larry Pryor on Wednesday, October 19th at the Grady Cole Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. So best wishes to Larry Pryor. And I got to say best wishes to Barry Butler. Butler was a nice guy, really nice guy. Talked to him after that win over Corey Cummings, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, as we move to November, a lot of stuff going on in November. We got a good November. We got back-to-back cards in Maryland on successive weekends, successive Saturdays coming up. Saturday, November 5th, we'll be at Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland for the Kings Promotions card there. And both these cards, by the way, will be broadcast live on the Box Lawn Beltway Google app for Android. This is a good card. This is Kings Promotions card, as we said, Saturday, November 5th at Rosecroft Raceway. The main event should be very interesting. The main event will be an 8-round bout between Forestville, Maryland's undefeated Michael the Professor Fox, and he'll take on, out of Haymarket, Virginia, Juan the Savior Rodriguez. This should be very interesting. Fox is 11-0, 3 KOs. He's coming off a nice third-round TKO win over Sumner Martin. That was on August 19th at the Crystal City Hilton in Crystal City, Virginia. Great performance for Michael Fox on that night. And he can build off of that. No question about that. He's 11-0 with 3 KOs. Juan the Savior Rodriguez got off to a great start in his career. And I remember covering his career, and I thought he was one of the top rookies when he came out. And he had an injury to his arm, and he really has not been the same since. And he's lost 3 straight. His record 6-5-1, 5 KOs. 6-5-1, 5 KOs. But he has lost his last 3. Some pretty good competition. He'll face some good competition again against Michael Fox. And I'm curious to see if Juan Rodriguez can really get inside that long reach of Michael Fox. That's going to be the interesting part of that particular bout. So that's the main event for this card on Saturday, November 5th. Also on the card, I think this is going to be interesting as well. Luther Lights Out Smith returns out of Crofton, Maryland, and he will drop down to cruiserweight for this bout. And I think Smith will be a lot more successful as a cruiser because he's got good power. He had good power for a heavyweight, but I think he was overpowered. I think the Balogun fight he had on that very same Crystal City card on August 19th taught Luther Smith 2 things. Number 1, he had a lot to learn technically as a boxer. And number 2, I think it taught him that he may not have the power to beat some of the bigger heavyweights and stronger heavyweights in the division. However, he may have the power to beat some of the cruiserweights in the division. So I think this will be a nice experiment. See what happens here. It should be very, very interesting to see what happens with that bout. No word yet on his opponent. Also scheduled to be on the card out of the Beltway. Short dog Jordan White will be on the card. Chris the Rock Warden. The return of Patrick Rivera made his pro debut early in the year. Marcus the Dreamcatcher Bates will be on the card. And 2 very interesting debuts will be on this card. The debut of Slick Justin Hurd. He's the younger brother of Swift Jared Hurd. We'll be talking about him in just a moment. But Slick Justin Hurd will make his pro debut in the Superweight Welterweight division, and he has no opponent yet. But the other man does have an opponent making his pro debut, and that's going to be Greg Outlaw. Greg Outlaw, I've watched in the amateurs for a long time. He's fought in the regional national Golden Gloves. He fought at one time at all the way down 112 pounds, but he'll be making his pro debut as a super lightweight coming up when he takes on Lamont White out of Washington, D.C. Lamont White is 0-4. So 2 great debuts, some good young talent on this card. So this should be a good one. Saturday, November 5th at Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland. We'll have the call for you right here on the Box on Beltway Google app for Android. Then on Saturday, November 12th, we'll be at New Burns Arena in Baltimore for the Shabazz Brothers and Shaw Style Promotions card. And that'll feature the likes of Travis the Severe Reeves, Eric El Torito Hernandez, the return of Glenn DeZern on the card, heavyweight Kobe Madison, Mac Allison IV, who I think is really kind of the odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year in 2016. He's one of the busiest fighters we've had in a long time. Jeffrey Gladiator McCall is on the card. Stefan the Surgeon Morris on the show. Kwame Ritter. Sharif C3 Rockman, Hasim Rockman's youngest son. And also one bout already signed, and that's Eric Govan out of Salisbury, Maryland, out of Tacoma Park, Maryland now, I believe. And he's taking on Devin Butcher out of Baltimore. Now, Devin Butcher was originally scheduled to take on, I believe, Jeffrey McCullough. That was the original drawing bout for this card, but apparently that bout will not take place as of right now. It'll be Eric Govan against Devin Butcher, and that might be an interesting bout as well, because Butcher does have some power, and Eric Govan really has not shown a lot of power in his young pro career, and so that will be an interesting bout indeed for that situation. So we'll see what happens with that as that bout continues. That bout takes place on Saturday, November 12th at the Burns Arena. That's the one bout already signed for that particular bout, that card. Eric Govan and taking on Devin Butcher. But the main event featuring Travis Reeves. Now, originally, Reeves was supposed to have some sort of title bout in this situation, but no word yet what that title may be if it does take place. So that is on Saturday, November 12th, the Burns Arena in Baltimore. We'll have to call for that one as well here on the Box Lawn Beltway Google app for Android. Now, November 12th will also be a very significant date. November 12th, we talked about Slick Justin Hurd making his pro debut on November 5th at Rosecroft. But November 12th, Swift Jared Hurd will be back in action and will be, right now, the biggest bout of his pro career, because it will directly lead him a whole lot closer to a world title. Jared Hurd will take on Jorge Cota out of Los Mochis, Sinaloa, Mexico, and that'll be a 10-round bout, and the winner of that one will be ranked number 2, I believe, in the WBC rankings, and that'll put him very close to a world title. And, of course, Jared Hurd, 18-0, 12 KOs, coming off a 10th round TKO, beautiful 10th round TKO win over Oscar Molina. That was on June 25th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Jorge Cota, this will be only his second time fighting in the United States. And his last time was at Full Sail University in Florida, and he scored a 10-round unanimous decision over Udell Johnson. Cota is 25-1, 22 KOs. Jared Hurd, 18-0, 12 KOs. Cota fought the majority of his career in Mexico, and although they usually are tough fighters there, I don't know if they are talented as the boxers, especially recently, that Jared Hurd has fought. The likes of Frank Galarza and Oscar Molina. I think this could be a real nice bout for Jared Hurd. It'll be on Spike TV, by the way, on November 12th. And that'll be, I believe, is a 9 o'clock start for the telecast there. And I believe Hurd will open that telecast on that card. So that'll be Saturday, November 12th at the Licoris Center. That's on the campus of Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And that'll be a card there for Jared Hurd. So big opportunity for Swift Jared Hurd. So that's the boxing for this next couple of weeks. And we have a lot of things going on. Don't forget, Saturday, November 5th, Saturday, November 12th, we'll be live right here for the call of action from Rosecroft Raceway to Burns Arena in Baltimore. Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, the Burns Arena in Baltimore. If you can come on out, please do. Should we give them great action, great cards, in both situations. Come on out and support your Beltway boxers, and get some great boxing in. If you can't be there, listen to the call live from both locations. We'll give you the times in a couple of weeks. Now, there are a couple other events coming up in the next couple of weeks that I want you to be aware of. Friday, November 4th. This is an event, actually, they did this last year, and I was a part of it. I was the master ceremonies for it, and it was a great event. They're doing it again this year. This is the Potomac Valley Association of USA Boxing's Awards Banquet. And last year we did this out in Capitol Heights, Maryland, and it was a great event, honoring the amateurs in the area who have done an outstanding job. You look at what this group has done over the last few years, and although the open division is not where we want it to be, the juniors and the novice are doing fantastic. And I think they're going to focus on that particular aspect of our amateurs. And, of course, the awards that are given to guys like Gary Antoine Russell, who did a wonderful job at the Olympics this year in Rio. So, but in this particular case, we're honoring our boxers who've been to the Golden Gloves, the Silver Gloves, the Junior Nationals, all around the country. They've done outstanding work, and they'll be honored coming up Friday, November 4th. This will take place at the Arc, which is located on 1001 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast D.C. Place I'm very familiar with. One of my old jobs, we put that building together. As a matter of fact, when I was at Pepco, that's when that building took place. Pepco, the electric company, for those who don't know, now known as Exelon now. But when I was at Pepco, that was when that building was there, and was there actually to help disadvantaged people get construction jobs. And a good person there, Dwayne Gautier, was one of the original leaders at the ARC. So just a little background there. But be as it may, it was a great situation. This could be a great night. If you can get out there, once again, it's going to be at the ARC, the PVA Awards Bank, Stonechild Valley Associated with USA Boxing, 1001 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast Washington, D.C. Then on Friday, November 11th, it's the D.C. Boxing Hall of Fame Award Ceremony. Now, every other year or so, the D.C. Boxing Hall of Fame names people to their Hall of Fame. And I'm, of course, very thrilled to be an inductee into the Hall of Fame. Back in 2009, I was inducted. It was a tremendous experience. I was inducted with my good broadcast partner, the Fight Doctor Jerome Spears. Also, Andrew Council was in my particular year, as was Israel Gergra. Just some of the people that were inducted. And Kevin Rivers Jr. won the Bakulich Award, and we'll talk about that in a moment. That year is the outstanding Beltway, at that time really amateur boxer, but I think they've extended now to Beltway boxer. So this year's class is pretty nice. I like this class. This is an interesting class. One guy in particular, I thought he was already in there. I was shocked that I found he was not in the Hall of Fame, but he should be there, and I'm glad he's there. And that is, of course, boxing Andrew Maynard. Andrew Maynard, who was a member of the 1988 Olympic team, that was one of the better Olympic teams in history. There's a team that doesn't get talked about a lot, which you really should, because if I talk about the 76 team, that was a great team. No question about that. The 84 team, fantastic, although they did not face the Russians and the Cubans because those Eastern Bloc countries boycotted the Olympics in 84 in Los Angeles, much like the U.S. and the Western countries boycotted the Olympics in Moscow in 1980. But again, the boxers that came out of that, Mark Breland, Evander Holyfield, Tyrell Biggs, Pernell Whitaker, Meldrick Taylor. It was a great group, no question about that. The 88 group does not get talked about as much. And it is kind of a shame because it was an outstanding group. When you look at guys like Michael Carbajal was in that team. Riddick Bowe was a silver medalist. Roy Jones Jr. got robbed like you wouldn't believe in the Olympics. He was on that team. Kennedy McKinney was on that squad. And Andrew Maynard won a gold medal in Seoul, South Korea in 1988. And he had a good pro career. It probably could have been a great pro career if he took... There were a couple bouts he had no business taking. I know one of them in particular was when he lost to Bobby Chez. Now, at that time, Maynard was undefeated, was going crazy, doing well. And Bobby Chez, who was fighting out in New Jersey, was not well known at the time. And I think a lot of people thought that Chez was going to be an easy bout for Maynard. And there was a lot of controversy, in all honesty. And actually, Maynard and I had a long talk about his career. I did an interview years ago for Boxing on the Beltway. And unfortunately, because of the change of voice interview systems that I had back then, I had a different one, and we lost everything, unfortunately, those days. But early on in Boxing on the Beltway, I did a long interview with Andrew Maynard, who's now living in Texas. And this is around the time where actually he had suffered there was a major storm that went down in Texas near the Mexican border, which is where he lived, and he lost almost everything at that point. And I talked to him, and we were trying to raise money for him to keep going. He had a gym down there too. He was training boxers down there. But we had a long conversation about his career. At one time, Maynard was managed by Sugar Ray Leonard. And without going into detail, Maynard simply said that did not go well. And it really didn't. It did not go well for him. And I believe he was still under management to Sugar Ray Leonard and his people when he took the bout against Bobby Chaz. And whether or not he didn't train, whether or not he overlooked Bobby Chaz, who again was kind of unknown at the time, but he lost that bout, and he lost that bout badly. And he never really recovered from that as a pro. He really did. He never really recovered from that. And I remember he took some fights. He came back home to fight a couple of times. One in particular, he lost to a very good rising cruiserweight at the time by the name of Egerton Marcus. He was out of Canada. That was on the undercard of Riddick Bowe Jesse Ferguson in 1993 at RFK Stadium. And that was also the card where Bernard Hopkins fought Roy Jones Jr. And neither boxer was at the peak of where they would end up being in their careers. And neither boxer looked very good. And Roy Jones won a very boring bout that night. But Maynard was on that card, and it was a tough bout all the way. It was a tough bout. He got knocked out there, and he never really recovered as a pro. And again, probably could have had a much better career if things had just gone differently. But he still had a very good career, and really is a legend in this area. He'll be back as part of the Hall of Fame on November 11th. Before I continue November 11th, one thing I should mention about the November 4th event at the PVA Awards banquet, and that is the fact that they are going to honor Hall of Famer Mark Two-Sharp Johnson, International Boxing Hall of Fame Mark Two-Sharp Johnson, for his outstanding work in the community as he's giving back to the future generations of boxing. So I need to make that mention for November 4th. Now, back to November 11th. I say Andrew Maynard is going to be inducted into the DC Boxing Hall of Fame. Also the pro category, a couple interesting choices. James Baker, who fought out of Capitol Heights, Maryland, super featherweight, didn't have a great career, but really was a fan favorite in the area. He fought Floyd Mayweather in the 1996 Olympic trials, lost to him, but had a decent pro career. Had a chance for a regional title, didn't make it there, but still a very good fan favorite boxer in this area. So he'll be on the show. He'll be inducted, as will Percy No Mercy Harris. Now, Percy Harris, interesting story. He didn't have a long career. He only fought three years as a pro, but in those 3 years, he fought some quality people. He scored a victory over a guy that was really a rising star, and this was in the mid-90s or so, early 90s actually. This is early 90s. A guy named Thomas Tate, who I believe was the younger brother of former Olympian Frank Tate. I think Frank Tate might have been on the 92 team, the team that Oscar De La Hoya was on. And I think that's right. But anyway, Thomas Tate was a rising star, undefeated, and Percy Harris knocked him out in that card. So that was a big win. He also fought both Bernard Hopkins early in his career and Roy Jones Jr. early in his career. In fact, it was Harris's last bout when he lost to Roy Jones Jr. So he was a very prominent pro for a very short time, but very good boxer. No question about that. Very good boxer. I think I did a couple of his bouts on my old Friday night at the Fieldhouse show. So that was interesting to see as well. So those are the three pros that'll be in the tournament, in the Hall of Fame coming up on November 11th at Martin's Crosswinds in Greenbelt, Maryland. In the amateurs, Sean Johnson, who fought at 106 pounds for a number of years, he also went to the Olympic trials in 1996 and beat Albert Guardado, who I believe went on to be on that Olympic team in 96. So he was in that situation and fought very well as an amateur. Alfonso Fletcher, to tell you the truth, I don't know a whole lot about Alfonso Fletcher, other than he's a nice, prominent trainer in the area, but I was trying to find information about him in the amateur situation. I really didn't find a whole lot of information. So if anybody has any, please send it to me at beltwayboxing@hotmail.com. I want to really kind of fill that out. In the contributor section, a number of people that I have so much respect for. In fact, all the people in the contributor section have touched my life in so many different ways. First of all, the legendary trainer Barry Hunter will be there. Barry Hunter, of course, of the Headbangers Gym, has become a pretty prominent color analyst at times for some of the Premier Boxing Champions cards, but he, of course, is well known for the man, the brains, and the leadership of the Headbangers Gym, who have put out so many pro and amateur champions, not only in this area but around the country. Of course, Lamont Peterson is best known from this area as a former world champion, and he dealt with Austin Trout. I believe the Headbangers had a hand in Roche Warren winning his world title. Of course, so many amateurs have come out of there. So many young pros have come out of there. Anthony Peterson and Damon Nicholson and Tierra Brown as a now a pro, and Tariq Irby now is a pro. I mean, the list goes on and on with the Headbangers. And Barry Hunter has been at the forefront of that. He's done an outstanding job, and he will go into the the DC Boxing Hall of Fame. Maybe one day he'll be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Also going in the DC Boxing Hall of Fame, two guys that, from a media standpoint, have touched me in so many different ways and have helped me along in more ways than I can count. One of them is the true legend of DC broadcasting, sportscasting in this area, Glenn Harris. Now, I go back with Glenn Harris, watching him going back to the mid-'70s. Because he used to be on a show in DC called The Place. Actually, it's called The New Place back then. And he used to do community sports for that show. And that's why I first knew who Glenn Harris was. Then, when my original mentor, Ron Sutton, left WHUR back in the mid-'80s, early to mid-'80s, Glenn Harris basically took over. And he started a run that lasted for a long period of time. I think almost 10 years at WHUR Radio here in Washington, D.C. And he did Let's Talk Sports. He actually started Let's Talk Sports, I believe, on WOL, which is another local station here in D.C. And when he did Let's Talk Sports, he covered the community as no one else could. And that was in not only just in the big sports like the football team and basketball and hockey, but he also covered the community sports, the sports that a lot of people weren't talking about. That, of course, included boxing. And his love for boxing, his knowledge of not only boxing, but DC sports in general was so legendary. And when I ended up going to Howard as a student in the mid-'80s, Glenn really helped me in some ways he doesn't even know. But one big way, it was really Glenn Harris that really moved my career as a public address announcer. For those who don't know, this is my 30th year as a public address announcer around the Beltway area. For the last 23 years, I've been the PA announcer for the basketball program at Coppin State University. I'm starting my 23rd year this year. When I was at Howard, I was the public address announcer for the basketball team and eventually the football team as well. And Glenn, knowing that, got me involved in the DC Special Olympics. The Special Olympics at one time, the basketball tournament used to be held at Howard. And they always asked Glenn, because Glenn is Glenn. Glenn, they knew who Glenn was, and he was a big name and all that. And they asked Glenn to be the PA announcer for the basketball tournament. Well, I don't think Glenn really wanted to do it because, again, it was a volunteer thing, and he was not only was he doing HUR on the weekends or in the evenings doing Let's Talk Sports. Actually, it was in the weekends at that point. He also had a job at Howard University. He was the recreation eventer and director at Howard University, which was his alma mater as well. And one time he used to do the broadcast of the football games on WHUR with his brother Ron, who is a great friend of me now. And he was then, but Ron and I travel the same boxing circles now. He writes for the Prince George's County Sentinel, covering boxing. So we share ideas all the time. But Glenn called me one day into his office and asked me if I was interested in doing the announcing for the Special Olympics. He said he kind of told me off the cuff he didn't really want to do it because, again, he didn't have time. I think because he wasn't getting paid. And I needed the experience. Because I had been only doing it for a couple of years. I needed the experience. And it was an experience that was invaluable. And I had a 10-year-long relationship with the DC Special Olympics at that time. Not only doing their basketball tournament in the fall and the winter, but also their track and field meet in the spring, which was at Gallaudet University here in Washington. So it was amazing. He was so instrumental, and he's helped me so many times along the way. I felt bad in 1993. It was a situation where I was called in to do the color commentary for Howard University football telecast on WHMM, along with Gus Johnson, who you may know from the NCAA basketball and college football and boxing and MMA, and goodness knows what he does now. But he's a Howard graduate too, and I was his first broadcast partner. And we were doing games for a local person who was doing games on cable television, on public access television. A guy by the name of Harry Davis, God rest his soul, great man, did something called the Broadcast Factory. And the Broadcast Factory was a thing for a vehicle for young people, to high school kids, to work on a television production. And myself, George Johnson, who was a great broadcaster here in the area, Rick Doc Walker, who now, of course, works for the Washington football team, and myself were called in to do the broadcast for the television show back then for the football games. And this is a year when Howard University was dominant in black college football. And so when the games got transferred to WHMM, I think Ron and Glenn Harris thought they were going to get it because that was who they were. So they ended up giving the games to myself and Gus. And I'm not sure how Glenn took that. Hopefully he didn't take it back. It wasn't personal at all. Just I was in a position where I was doing games at that time, so they didn't want to move me and Gus off that spot. So it was nothing personal. And it turns out the playoff game I couldn't do because my soon-to-be wife and I had planned a trip to Hawaii, and I couldn't go to Huntington, West Virginia, to see Howard play Marshall in the first round of what was then known as the 1AA playoffs. So I was like, okay, West Virginia in November or Hawaii in November. What should I do? And I ended up, of course, taking the trip to Hawaii. And that helped me be married now for almost 23 years. Anyway, so be as it may. Glenn Harris throughout the years, and he hadn't been in the best of health. He's getting better now, fortunately. But, his legacy is fantastic. He was the original sportscaster on News Channel 8, which is our all-news TV channel here in Washington, D.C. That dates back to 1991. And he just retired from that this past year, 2015. And of course, he was ill at the time, and his time on the station had diminished over the years. But his legacy of being just supported the boxing in the area. He had boxers on Let's Talk Sports all the time. He talked about boxing all the time on Let's Talk Sports. He also was a fixture at the Washington and the regional Golden Gloves championship events. The promoter there, Bobby Magruder, would always bring him in as a second announcer, and it was just so great to see him. So I'm very happy for Glenn being there. So Glenn Harris will be inducted into the Washington, D.C. Hall of Fame, and also a guy that I've come to really call a great friend in the last, I'd say, we've known each other now about 10 years, I guess. His name is Tom Lavero. Tom Lavero is a sports columnist for the Washington Times, which is one of the newspapers here in D.C. He also worked for a short time a few years actually, full-time basis on one of the sports talk radio stations here in DC, WTEM, ESPN 980. He does some guest work for them, but he was on a show with Kevin Sheehan in DC in the middays. And when they kind of did some revamping there, he got kind of left out in the cold, which I think is really bad. But he does make appearances on one of the shows here in D.C. But Tom Lavero is someone who has followed boxing consistently, not only in this area, but around the country for as long as I've known him. And I've known him pretty much since 1994, 95 or so. He's even come to college boxing and done stories on college boxing. If you read my blog and read my profile, the first thing I put in my profile is a quote that he used in an actual column. Believe it or not, he used it in the column that he wrote about my blog, Boxing Law on the Beltway. He's the first and really one of the few mainstream media outlets that has given this blog a lot of credit. My blog a lot of credit, and I do appreciate that. And he said Boxing Law on the Beltway is the site to go to. Want to know all about boxing from the amateurs to the pros, and I'm so touched by that. And he and I have maintained a great friendship over the years. We share a lot of common, not only with boxing but with music as well. We like to say he got with music, so we talk about old music all the time, and he's just a great guy. And he's done a lot with professional boxing, not only in this area, but around the country. He's written books on it. He wrote he's a member of the Boxing Writers Association of America, and he won an award for a major column that actually came back up in the news recently about the possibility of the FBI fixing the bout, not fixing the bout between Liston and Ali, but being implicit in a possible murder of Sonny Liston. It was Tom Lavelle who put that together, and it was really interesting. And he won an award for that, and he's able to vote in the Hall of Fame, and he's just a great person, and he loves sports in general. I see him, in fact, right now as I talk to you, I'm just outside FedEx Field in Landover. I was covering the Washington football team, their win today over Philadelphia. And I'm doing this, actually, I'm waiting for the traffic to clear out of here. So I felt it was a good time to do a boxing podcast. And I didn't see Tom today. But normally I see him at FedEx Field in the press box. We talk a little bit, and we talk a lot about boxing. He's one of the few mainstream media types that can talk about boxing and have a really good conversation with. He'll understand who I'm talking about. Okay, so it's really cool. And he and I have done some things over the years, and I kind of suggested to Bobby, hopefully, just an aside, really, I didn't do much with it, that Tom should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm really glad he is in there. So he'll be there. And by the way, Tom has a nice podcast you may want to check out on iTunes, especially. It's called Cigars and Curveballs. And he talks to a lot of folks. He's talked to a number of boxing people already. He's talked to George Foreman, and he talked to Gene Kilroy, who was a very good friend of Muhammad Ali, not too long after Ali's passing. So he's done some things with boxing on his podcast. So again, definitely worthy to be there. Now, the two other people in the contributor section that are involved there, who are being inducted, they're doing it posthumously, unfortunately. Two guys that really shaped the path of where DC boxing in particular is heading. The longest tenured chair of the DC Boxing and Wrestling Commission, Dr. Arnold W. McKnight, will be inducted. And he was a member of the commission since 1991, and he was chair from 1993 until his passing in 2007. I'm sorry, 2012. No, 2007. It was 2007. Excuse me, 2007. Now, Don McKnight and I didn't always see eye to eye. I mean, not that we didn't dislike each other. A lot of things we just didn't see eye to eye sometimes. We had some discussions, let's say. But I will always respect him for being just a stand-up person and really having the boxing first. And not only boxing, but he did a lot for mixed martial arts in this area. And I think this new commission is trying to build upon that. The new people on this commission are trying to build upon that. So I'm hoping that will do that. And you know, he was a great guy. You know, I liked him. We got along. I didn't dislike him. He didn't dislike me. We just had disagreements. Simple as that. We had disagreements. We discussed it like men, and we had disagreements. Simple as that. So that was so that's a tough one there. So he'll be inducted, as will the deputy commissioner, through a good portion of McKnight's tenure as the head of the DC Boxing Wrestling Commission. That was, of course, the late Alfred Grant, who passed away last year. Mr. Grant and I had tremendous time together. He was a great guy. As I said, when he passed last year, he was helpful in two ways in particular. Number one, he was originally from Panama, and because he spoke Spanish fluently, he helped a lot of Latino boxers get through some of the processes they need to get to be successful before they even get into the ring. So the paperwork and the tests and all. His of course, fluency in Spanish was very huge in that situation. That's what a lot of commissions may not have as much. And Mr. Grant having that talent was wonderful. No question about that. He was wonderful in that regard. So that was always interesting there. So have him there. And of course, the second thing, and one of the reasons why I've taken some time off from from this podcast for a little bit. The card we had recently, and I've tried to put it out of my mind so quickly, but the card we had recently at the Sphinx Club in D.C., where we had most of the bouts in the first round knockouts, most of the fighters on the card were from Wilson, North Carolina. If Alfred Grant was still alive, that card would have never happened. Never would have happened. Because Mr. Grant learned from the card we had, and I spoke about this a while back in 2013 at Echo Stage Lounge in D.C., which was a similar card with similar results. And the women's bout that night saved it. But it was after that card where Grant looked at me and said, "This will never happen again." And it never did until this past month at the Sphinx Club. Now, both the two commissioners, I didn't get a chance to talk to the chair, Adam Wears, but I did talk to Kim Lockett and Andrew Huff, who are the commissioners on the DC Boxing Wrestling Commission. They both looked at me and said this will never happen again. I hope that's the case. Skip Brown, who eventually replaced Grant as deputy commissioner, knew what was going to happen. He did not want to step in. The problem was, and I know for some people I've talked to about it, the promoters did not want to spend any money. And that was about making them the cheap, making boxing the cheap. But Mr. Grant, if he'd been here, that card would have never taken place. It would never have gotten past the paper set because he knew. Grant knew. And so that was tough. So that's a tough loss as well. So both Dr. McKnight and Alfred Grant, Arnold McKnight and Alfred Grant will be inducted possibly into the DC Boxing Hall of Fame. And then the Backlitz Award, which is the DC Boxing Hall of Fame's award for the best boxer in the area, will go to Lamont Roach Jr. Great choice there. Can't fault that one. He had an outstanding bout in his last outing. Looked very, very good. Oh, he looked good in that outing. Third round knockout over Sumner Martin. And he looked great. He looked great in that fight. So So good choice there. Looking forward to seeing him get that award on November 11th. So that's Friday, November 11th. Martin's Cross wins in Greenbelt, Maryland. And I hope you can be out there for that. You can see some of the rundown on the blog. A couple things before we get out of here. Again, going back to that card, and those who are on Facebook need to find Juan Marshall, my partner Juan Marshall from Pro Am Fight Talk. Find his talk about that card. I didn't say a lot about it because I've said my piece on it. I've said it here on the blog, on the podcast. I've said it after shows. And quite frankly, I was just tired of talking about this whole situation with the boxers from Wilson, North Carolina. And I saw a post today on Facebook by somebody who said, we got to get this North Carolina State stuff straight. And that's the bottom line, folks. It really is. And again, only reason why I really even care about it is because they send a lot of our boxers to this area. And they just don't help our boxers one bit. You know, I felt bad in a way for Tierra Brown and for Tyreek Irby for their bouts because they fought guys, and actually in Tierra's case, gals, who had no clue how to box. And they look so scared coming in, and you could just tell what's going to happen. You can tell what's going to happen before it even happens. And that's just the sad part about it. No question about it. It's a sad, sad situation. So I didn't want to talk about it more. I really didn't. I just did not want to talk about it anymore. Just hopefully that what both the commissioners from the DC Boxing Risk Commission have said will reign true, and it won't happen again. We just haven't had a lot of boxing in this area. And I'm glad to see Maryland finishing strong because, quite frankly, Maryland just hadn't had a lot. And I think it's not Maryland's fault. I don't think it's Maryland's fault. I mean, a lot of people claim there's issues dealing with the commission and all. I don't know much about that other than what people tell me. But I think a lot of the problem, and Juan's discussed it, I've discussed it, we've discussed it together. We're running out of folks, guys. We're running out of folks to fight in this area because everybody's moving on. You know, you heard it tonight. Demetrius Ballard's in Montreal. Jared Hurd's going to be fighting in Philadelphia. Mike Reed just came back from Philadelphia. Dusty Harrison just fought in Philadelphia. You know, they're fighting all over the country. They're getting big wins. They're getting big opportunities. Not everybody's cashing in on them, which is tough. But that's a problem now. So we don't have a lot of boxers to fight on a consistent basis in this area now because a lot of folks have moved on. You know, these are the guys, what you're going to see both on November 5th, November 12th, are the guys that fought back in May and June. Okay? These are the same, but in August. May, June, and August. They fought in the summer. They got their 3 months in, their 5 months in, and now they're fighting again in November. That means if they continue that cycle, they may not fight again until February, March, and April. Okay? So we have a lot of gaps now because the bigger talent, the more experienced talent, the more successful talent has moved on. So there's been a drop-off. Now, what could happen in 2017 is we start cashing in on some of these big opportunities down the road. You know, Gary Russell gets back in business again and starts fighting. Lamont Peterson maybe fights again. Jared Hurd capitalizes on this big opportunity coming up on November 12th. Okay? And we move on from there. So that's what we're looking at right now. So it's not a whole lot there. It really is not a whole lot there. So we'll see what happens as we get into 2017. This is going to be a hard year for our awards because, quite frankly, we haven't had as big a successful year as we've had in previous years. We've had opportunities, but some of it has been missed opportunities. So we'll see. We'll see what happens as we go into that. That'll be coming up in the not too distant future. To end this podcast on kind of a somber note, we lost two legendary people, one in the Beltway area and one in the world of pro boxing. Let's start with the world first. And When we talk about the growth of boxing in the mid 80s, late 70s, early 80s, early to mid 80s, we've lost a number of people already from that time period. We lost Bobby Chacon. Of course, we lost Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was huge through the 60s, 70s, into 1980, really, when his career really started to stop. But that led to, along with Sugar Leonard's growth, led to a really solid revival among the welter and middleweights and the 140, 147, 154, 160 boxing. And we already lost Bobby Chacon, who actually was a featherweight, but one of the big names, and one of the reasons why I maintained my love for boxing all through my life, passed away this past week. And we're talking about Aaron the Hawk Pryor. Now, if you watch TV in the 80s, watch boxing on Saturday afternoons, you saw Aaron Pryor. And the Hawk was something else. He really was. Just an action fighter personified, gave no quarter, took no quarter, and really was a dominant fighter for a number of years. And of course, most people talk about his 2 wins over Alexis Arguello. The first one was controversial because of Panama Lewis. Give me the bottle, the one I mixed. You know about that, and that led to Pryor. That may have led, I should say, to Pryor knocking out Arguello in the 14th round of that bout. Second bout, a little easier time for Pryor. He pretty much dominated Arguello and won that bout in the 10th round. But there were 2 legendary fighters, 2 of my favorite fighters at that time period, going at each other. And I didn't really care who won, because I loved both guys. But it was a real tough bout. No question about it. And Pryor's career after that didn't go all that well. He did win another world title, but he had a drug issue. I know he was having problems with his first wife, and the rest ended up being history. But he got himself clean. He got involved in the ministry, I remember. And every year, for as long just about as Fight Night has been around, Aaron Pryor has been here. Now, Fight Night comes up November 10th. I didn't talk about it because actually there aren't any Beltway boxers again on that card. And I think that may be because there aren't a whole lot of boxers left, as I said, just said. But my biggest concern is that they never have Mark Too Sharp Johnson as one of the legends. But this will be the first year in years that Aaron Pryor will not be there. He was there every year at the Fight Night, Fight for Children at the Washington Hilton Hotel. So it's gonna be really strange not seeing that man give that hawk signal, as he always used to put his right hand up front, almost like a Black Power salute, but really wasn't. It was hawk time. And nice man. I had a chance to talk to him briefly a couple times at Fight Night, and really a tough loss for the boxing world at large. However, a tougher loss here in this area, and I haven't written about this because I haven't gotten all my information about him written out, so I don't have enough background information. I just go by what I know of the man personally. We lost a great trainer here in the Beltway by the name of Marvin Rock Sims, and Rock was a well-known trainer out of the Hillcrest gym. And he fought not just Hillcrest. He was at Sugar Ray, I think, too, at one point. But see, that's some of the stuff I really need to kind of get together. I remember him from Hillcrest. I think he may have been another gym or two throughout his career. But he trained some of our great boxers. He trained William Joppy. He trained William Joppy for his bout against Felix Trinidad. And I remember that bout in 2001. That was kind of a strange one because Joppy had one game plan, Rock had another. They tried them both, and neither one of them worked. Rock wanted to kind of box Trinidad, and Joppy, since she was a natural a middleweight at that time, and Trinidad was coming up from welterweight, from 147, Joppy thought he could overpower her. And so they tried the overpowering first. That didn't work. Then he tried to box, but at that time, Trinidad had caught up to Jalopy and the fight was over. But I remember Rock being a part of that. And also, Rock dealt with Sean Ray Mitchell for a while. He was a trainer for Sean Bay during some of his glory years as well. So, great trainer. Trained a lot of great people over the years, and he'd been ill for quite some time. I do remember that. He'd been ill for quite some time. So I know it was been tough for him over the years, but nice man. Very quiet guy, didn't say a whole lot, but he and I have some good conversations over the years, and we're going to miss Marvin Rock Sims. His funeral is coming up, and we'll give you the details on that on Boxing Along the Beltway, the blog, in the next couple of days. So our best wishes to the families of both Aaron Pryor and Marvin Rock Sims. Well, that'll do it here for another edition of Boxing Along the Beltway News and Notes. It's been a long edition. I do appreciate you, but I had a lot of stuff on my mind, and finally had a lot of stuff to talk about. And again, just a lot of things going on in my personal life. Nothing major, nothing bad, just busy. Just really busy over the last few months. And so boxing has really kind of taken a backseat all the way around. I'm just now getting back, into the boxing scene again. So you'll be hearing more from me throughout the next couple of weeks. And we'll get ready for our big events coming up. Of course, November 4th, the PVA Awards Banquet. November 5th, we're at Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland for a boxing card there, King's Promotion card. November 11th, the DC Boxing Hall of Fame Banquet. November 12th, we have, of course, the boxing card at Du Burns Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, the Shaw Style Promotions Shabazz Brothers card. So a lot to talk about in the next couple of weeks. So we'll be more regular on our boxing podcast in the future. So thanks, stay with us, and don't forget the Boxing on the Beltway Google app for Android brings you Boxing on the Beltway News and Notes podcast, brought to you also by Real Time Pain Relief, the plant-based ointment from boxers, ballerinas, from muscle strain, and everything, every pain in between. Used Boxing on the Beltway really does support Real Time Pain Relief. And don't forget, you can go to www.freepainoffer.com, and you can get, with the first $10 of Real Time Pain Relief, you get a free $10 tube of Real Time Pain Relief. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. Thanks for staying with me, everybody. I'm Gary Digital Williams. Always remember, keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the Boxing Along the Beltway. Take care.